Okay, let's start. Okay, one of the most hotly contested words of the 21st century, global warming. Yes, can you see the PPT now? Are you
Yes,
all
sir.
okay? So tell me, what is global warming? In very simple terms. You've been studying global warming. What is global warming since class 4 or 5 now? What is global warming?
Rise in the temperature of Earth's climate.
Okay, a very simple definition is rise in the temperature of the Earth's uh, climate and weather, right? The overall temperature of the Earth is rising. And what is that leading to? What are the consequences? The first major consequence. What is the first major consequence? If the
Greenhouse effect.
temperature is rising. Greenhouse effect is the reason why the temperature is rising,
So
correct?
rising of oceans.
Rising of oceans. How does that happen?
So due to temperature increase,
Glaciers melts.
glaciers
Yes,
melt
yes.
and the ice melts
The
in
glaciers
the.
start melting because the glaciers are not used to this high temperature. So slowly they start melting, and glaciers are huge. Okay, we have no clue as to how big those glaciers are and how much ice is there in those glaciers. So even if they melt, even if the difference in temperature is 1 degree, right, and they melt a little, the oceans can rise up to 4 or 5 millimeters, and that small change might look small to us, is a very big change for the whole environment of the earth, right? So this is basically what global warming is, and all of you already know because we have been teaching you this since class 5, 6. Because we want you people to know that this is not something that is a thing that happens. It is happening right now. It is the current increase in temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, water, and surface. Human activities produce greenhouse gases. Okay, give me one example of a greenhouse gas. The most common greenhouse
Carbon
gas,
dioxide.
carbon dioxide. Yes, greenhouse
Yes.
gases that accumulate in the atmosphere and cause problems our planet faces today. So most of the problems that our planet is facing today are because of these greenhouse gases, and that is which is leading to global warming, right? Can you tell me what a greenhouse gas does? What is the problem with a greenhouse gas? What is one thing that it
It,
does? CO2.
It traps the
sir, it traps
temperature.
the heat.
Sorry,
It traps the
it traps the solar rays of the sun,
Correct.
yes.
And that
or
eventually
we can say
doesn't
the
let the rays
heat.
go back, and the temperature increases in the atmosphere of
Rises.
the earth, right? There is another ozone layer. What is the deal with the ozone layer?
So it protects us from UV rays which comes from the
Hmm.
sun.
So what if
It
there is a
reflects the
hole in
UV
the
coming
ozone
from the
layer?
sun.
Yeah, it will lead
The
to
UV rays will come more
diseases.
easily to us and cause ailments.
Okay. And then the temperature, obviously, those rays are very harmful. Yes, are even like, imagine if we are exposed to those rays, we might get cancer, right? They're that harmful. So ozone layer is depleting because of CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. They are present in all day-to-day things, right? So the most dangerous is ozone layer depletion on top of the Antarctica, right? On top of the Arctic Ocean and the Antarctic Ocean. That is where it's one of the most dangerous because all the ice is concentrated there. Okay, what global warming leads to is the most immediate effect is extreme weather patterns. We are used to certain weather patterns, but as soon as the global temperature rises, the weather patterns keep changing. And if there is more rain, let's say, that rain will obviously lead to floods. Eventually it actually messes up the whole living idea of how we live our lives. This picture that you see here is not taken a year back, it was taken 2 days back, and it is from your home state. It is from Assam. Assam is still battling a flood. Yes. So imagine it is happening right now. It is not something that will happen, okay, or might happen. It's happening right now. It's very visible, it's very apparent. One of the most obvious effects of global warming is extreme weather. The weather patterns are rapidly changing in all parts of the world. The increased rainfall in certain regions affect the balance that animals and plants need to survive. Imagine if all the animals, all the fauna and flora that is there in this region was used to a certain pattern of weather, but now if there is water everywhere, all the flora and fauna is going to be affected by it. Again, I bring you very, very recent news. Okay, I'm not bringing you news from the, and it's not a generalized statement that Arctic is one of the worst places affected by global warming. You see the date here, 30th of June. The data is from day before yesterday. This is happening right now, and this is the first time that has happened. That the 30-year average of this is the Arctic Circle. Okay, that's that white line that you see is the Arctic Circle, and it includes land as well, and this ocean, which is also surrounded by ice. So the average temperature of this particular region was around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. Okay, for the past 30 years average, if we count. Yes, but right now the average, the temperature has reached as to 34 plus 34 degrees Celsius, which is huge. This is day before yesterday's data. It's shocking, it's scary, because for the past 30 years the temperature which was earlier used to be 10 to 12 degrees, which used to now is 34 degrees Celsius. So imagine how drastic that change is, right? Earth is heating up. All the data is there for us to back that global warming is real. You see this is the pink line is the data for 2020. You see the temperature is of, earlier it used to be around -3, it's now -1. It's increasing. More than 1 million species have become extinct due to effects of global warming. The Montana Glacier National Park, which had 25 glaciers, has only 25 glaciers instead of 150 that were there in the year 1910. Let's see some real life, because we don't see glaciers melting. So let's see some glaciers melting. This is how they melt, because they melt slowly and they melt very, very far away from us. So we don't see it. So it doesn't affect us that much. But they are actually melting. Right? We saw those glaciers melting, and we get to see that it is a reality. It is not something that happens, because most of us are maybe not going to go to the Arctic Ocean or the Antarctica, right? We might not.
So
get
have
a
you
chance.
been there?
I have not been there. No.
Wow.
It is very difficult to go to the Antarctica and the Arctic Ocean, because first of all of the extreme temperature. Second of all, there is no Antarctica, especially because there is no human settlement there. No humans are found there. And thirdly, it's very difficult to go there. We'll come to that. We'll come to that in the chapter how they went there. Right? You can see other images from before and after images of these glaciers. Earlier there used to be this huge chunk of ice. Now there's just a lake. Although it looks beautiful, but it is scary. There's huge glaciers which have already melted, and there is only water here. Again, there's a huge chunk of ice here. Earlier you couldn't even see the mountains behind. Now this glacier has almost melted, and it's just water here. There's no ice. It's only at the top. Right? So now, after giving you so many evidences of this global warming, why is this man who seems to be apparently is the most powerful man on earth is saying that there is no global warming? It's an expensive hoax. Right? See one more tweet from him. I'll give you a whole link where there is a list of all the things that he has said about global warming. And it's not just him. There are various leaders who are saying there's no global warming. You know, there's a lot of snow here. As soon as there's winter, they say, see so much snow around us. There's no global warming. Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think they're denying? What can possibly be the reason they can deny that something like this is not happening? Can anyone guess?
Because it's their fault and they want to cover it up.
Okay. Actually, we cannot put it up on any one person that it's your fault that we have global warming, because it's a global phenomena, right? But definitely something fishy, or maybe they have some selfish interests. Can you guess any selfish interest that President Trump or America might have in order to deny that there is any global warming?
Since they are the developing country and they are now at this moment the top country in the world, they don't want the other
Mhm.
countries to take their position, especially the developing countries and the newly developed countries like China and developing countries like India. They don't want them to compete the level US is.
Correct. That is one of the most appropriate answers for this, because that America is a developed country, China is also a developed country, India is a developing country. Fine. How does a country become developed? With industrialization. Okay, you can have any modern
Sir, I
technology.
think there is a conspiracy theory.
What is that?
It might be some conspiracy theory to means damage means to destroy all nations and let the means take their resources to the means their particular countries.
Okay, it might be, but if that is a conspiracy theory to take other countries' wealth on us on the same planet that you are, because you are affecting the planet, it's not just countries that global warming is affecting. Yes, so that is
Yes, sir.
actually a very stupid conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theories, most of them are actually baseless, but here actual power play is apparent. Nations are just busy at fighting with each other, into undermining each other. China is coming up as a huge global power, superpower, and America is already there. India is trying to become a superpower. It's just trying to, it's taking baby steps into becoming a developed nation. Now, when you are becoming a developed nation, as I said, you need industrialization. Industrialization leads to this. This is the whole problem why people will deny that there is global warming. Because if you have industries, you're going to release a lot of carbon dioxide, right? Humans around the earth release around 35 billion. the I wanted to show you some data about it, but India is at number 3, America is at number 1, China is number 2, India is number 3, and then these countries, even Donald Trump and China, are blaming India for global warming, because they're saying that India is releasing a lot of carbon dioxide and India needs to stop. Why do we need to stop? Because they don't have just this global warming card. They also don't want India to develop, India to become a better nation, right? A developed nation. So such complex power plays, when they are at our hand, when such things are happening around the world, so such issues like global warming take a backseat. This is human nature. We put selfish interest before like good of humanity. Rather than taking the whole world together and saying yes, there is global warming, we should fight it together. Countries are blaming each other that you are creating more pollution, you are more polluting, right? So this is again what shows how human beings are. And this is what you people need to solve, because you are going to be the next generation who is going to be on in these power dynamics, who will be dealing with these power dynamics. So maybe these people who are old now were not educated in a way you are being educated. You are being sensitized towards global warming, that it is not something any individual country can solve, right? You need to know this, that you are going to be the change makers of tomorrow. That is why this chapter is even there in your syllabus. That is why we've been continuously teaching you people that this is something that affects you directly. It is not something that is coming to you from our actions. And incidentally, today I got a notification in Google Calendar. I think all of you got it. Today is International Plastic Free Day. Did you get it? We should, today is
Wow.
International Plastic Free Day. We shouldn't use plastic today. We should get rid of plastic, because plastic, even small things are affecting our environment, and we'll get to see a very big example of that in the chapter itself, with something called the phytoplankton. As I told you in the last class, I mean, maybe day before yesterday or something, about oxygen supply to the whole Earth, how that happens. We'll get to see that in this chapter. Okay, now, how do we combat global warming? What do we do about it? With so many complex things going on, how do you combat it? Give me some suggestions.
Planting trees. I mean, afforestation.
Correct. Planting trees, afforestation, even taking care of the already existing trees. Yes. Most people are like, we will plant more trees. Let me cut this first. Yes.
Stop riding on roads.
Yeah.
Vehicles.
Shifting
Vehicles,
to
okay.
non-conventional fuels
Okay. Non-conventional or renewable fuels. Yes.
like biodiesel, etc.
Biodiesel. Yes. And even the sunlight, solar power can be harnessed.
Solar power.
Yes. Even the winds.
Yes, sir.
And
So even there is a theory where it suggests that the heat due to global warming can also be used as a method of fuel or something like that. There was a theory I read that.
Maybe. But that is like, we are not being able to use solar power first. That we can use later. First, let's harness solar power, because that is an indefinite source of energy. Solar power is it is an indefinite source of energy. We are existing only because of the sun. Yes, only because of the sun is photosynthesis possible, and
So
that is the
colonizing
reason why we get oxygen.
other planets.
Colonizing other planets. That is one way where you can do that, where Elon Musk is also trying to go to other planets. But that is something that we can look forward to later. Right now, what are the steps we can do to combat global warming? At our own individual place. Okay, so Kanya is saying non-biodegradable fuels must be used. Any other ways you can suggest to combat global warming apart from what has been already suggested?
Reduction in population.
Reduction in population, okay. Population sensitization. If there are less people, we will use less resources. Fine, okay.
Like family planning.
Yes, that is what it is. And
Okay.
even at our homes, individual level, what can we do?
So using power efficient electric appliances.
Okay, using less resources, using power efficient electric resources. Correct. One of the things that you are going to learn today is again a sensitization program, which your whole class is also one of them, right? It's called Students on Ice program, where students are being taken to places like the Arctic and the Antarctica, where they are shown firsthand what the experience of melting ice glaciers is, what climate change is, right? Where they're shown firsthand, because they are the change makers. As I told you, you people are the change makers. You are going to change the earth for good. So this environment is what it's called, and this is what we'll study in this chapter called Journey to the End of the Earth. The author is Tishani Doshi. She is a multifaceted personality. She is even a journalist. She's a poet. She's a dancer. She did not go to this expedition as a student. She went there as a journalist, and she has recounted every single detail of how she went there, what she saw, what she experienced, what was her experience like. Right. Something more about the Students on Ice program. It takes expeditions to the Arctic and the Antarctic, and it's an experiential environmental education, the one that you experience. So education is not necessarily something that you gain from other people. You can experience it as well. So this is one of those programs where you experience education. Okay, before we move forward, let me get some basic things out of the way. What is the Antarctic and what is the Antarctica? What is the Arctic and what is Antarctic? Where is it? What is the difference between the two?
Sir, the location, one is in the North Pole and one is in the South Pole.
Oh, which one is in the North Pole?
Antarctica.
No, Arctic.
Most people have this confusion. The Arctic is in the North Pole
North Pole.
Yes, Arctic
And
is
it is
the
an ocean. It is not land. The Arctic Ocean. It is surrounded by land. Clear? Now the Antarctic is in the South Pole. It is land. It's a continent by itself. Clear? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, don't make this
Yes, sir.
confusion. Arctic is an ocean. It's on the North Pole. On the South Pole, we have the Antarctic. It's a continent. It's made of land. It is surrounded by ocean. Arctic is surrounded by land. Got it? Arctic is where you will find polar bears. Antarctic is where you find penguins. Okay? Even in the Antarctic Circle that I just showed you before, there are human settlements as well. But there is no human settlement in the Antarctic. All
Sir,
right?
one research center from our
Yes,
India.
research centers are there definitely in the Antarctic, but most
The
people
near-
don't stay there throughout the year. Research centers from every country are there in the Antarctic, and that is why so many research centers are there, because it is such a important place. That we'll get to know why is it such an important place, why there are so many research centers in the Antarctic. Right? Let me show you a brief video about what the Students on Ice program is. This is taken from the YouTube channel. These are students who are going to Antarctic. They're just students like you. And they have been taken to this program. This is where you experience nature, experience the education. All these icebergs melting. When you watch this firsthand, you have a completely different view of what life is. Right? So this is this expedition takes people to both Arctic and the Antarctica, but Tishani Doshi went to Antarctica, and she is recounting her experience in this chapter. All right. This chapter is divided into parts. First, we have the introduction, then we have a part of history, as she's telling us what Antarctica was in history, then the human impact, what impact have we made, and then when she got to walk on the ocean, what was her experience like. Okay, so we start with the introduction first. Early this year, I found myself aboard a Russian research vessel, the Akademik Skokalsky, heading towards the coldest, driest, windiest continent in the world, Antarctica. Her journey began 1309 degrees north of the equator in Madras. She started from India, in Madras, on south of India, and it involved crossing 9 time zones, 6 checkpoints, 3 bodies of water, and at least as many ecospheres. What are ecospheres? What does this word ecosphere mean? What are ecospheres? Class 6-7 geography, ecospheres. She's saying she went through 3 bodies of water and 9 time zones and at least as many. That means 3 ecospheres. She went through 3 ecospheres. We are also in an ecosphere right now. What is ecosphere?
And separate unique ecosystem of itself.
Yes, correct. A separate unique ecosystem of itself, which can sustain itself, right? So let's say of the air, we have atmosphere. Then for the land, we have geosphere. For water, we have hydrosphere.
Hydrosphere.
Yes? Got it? Remember now?
Yes.
Atmosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, ecospheres. Yes? Don't forget such basic things, because you people are going to need this. You people are going to combat the global warming, right? So she went through at least 3 ecospheres. By the time I actually set foot on the Antarctic continent, I had been traveling over 100 hours in combination of a car, an aeroplane, and a ship. So my first emotion on facing Antarctic's expansive white landscape and uninterrupted blue horizon was relief, followed up with an immediate and profound wonder. So if you've ever been to, let's say, a beach, how many of you have been to a beach? Raise your hand. Put your videos on, everybody. I can't see you.
I went.
Videos on. Put your videos on. Yes. So if you ever been to an ocean, the first reaction is, what is the first reaction? Give me, Abu Zabir, what was your first reaction on seeing the ocean?
I was mesmerized to see the shores coming to touch my feet.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, good feeling.
Okay. Anybody else has gone to a beach? Okay,
Yes, sir.
if you have, okay, who has gone to the beach? Tell me your experience. What was the first experience when you saw beach?
Blue water everywhere and sand.
Okay. So I'll tell you something about myself. I'm hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means you're scared of water, right?
Okay.
So I'm not scared of water in a water bottle. That is not hydrophobic means. So I'm scared of like large amount of water, right? So there is a dam in Uttarakhand where I'm from. So when I was going somewhere, suddenly that dam appeared out of nowhere. So much water. The first time I saw so much water in my life at one place, right? It was immense. Okay, that first of all I was scared, but then I felt as if I am nothing. How big are we? We human beings are just so tiny, and we think that we are so powerful. So when I went to a beach, the first thing that I noticed was the immensity of the water, right? How immense the earth is and what the ocean is. Yes, the same feeling I think she also got when she saw the immensity of the expansive wide landscape and uninterrupted blue horizon. Was relief. First of all, she was relieved because she has been traveling for the past 100 hours, and followed up with an immediate and profound wonder at its immensity, its isolation, but mainly at how there could have ever have been a time when India and Antarctica were part of the same landmass. Did you know this? That India and Antarctica were part of the same landmass?
The Gondwana land.
The Gondwana land, correct. We will see that. Yes. So this was the ship that took Tishani Doshi to Antarctica, the academic Shokalski. And this is the expansive wide landscape she must have landed on, probably. And you can see it's uninterrupted white. There is no human population. There's no human markers, anything, no trees as well. It's just white, pure white snow. Yes. Right. So then we come to the part of history, a continuation of the last sentence, where India and Antarctica were earlier part of the same landmass. So we come to a history lesson. 650 million years ago. So it's 650 million years ago. A giant amalgamated southern supercontinent, Gondwana. It was a supercontinent because all the continents that we know of now earlier were in the same continent. So it was a supercontinent, did indeed exist, centered roughly around the present day Antarctica. Things were quite different then. Humans hadn't arrived, obviously, on the global scene, and the climate was much warmer, hosting a huge variety of flora and fauna. For 500 million years, so Gondwana thrived. For at least 500 million years, Gondwana thrived. But around the time when the dinosaurs were wiped out and the age of the mammals got underway, the landmass was forced to separate into countries, shaping the globe as we know it today. So this, I'll show you what it's called continental drift. The continents drifted apart. Earlier, it was called the Pangaea. This was Laurasia, this part, and this was the Gondwana land. Okay, and this is where India is. India was earlier here, and this is Antarctica. They were just together, imagine. And this is the modern world where all these, this has drifted apart, all these continents, and they are what we are as we see them. To visit, got it, everybody? Remember this, the Gondwana land was earlier. Antarctica, India, Australia, South America, Africa were part of the same tectonic. We were under the same tectonic plate, and then when they separated, India went and collided with Eurasia, and then that is where we'll see that later. We're coming to it. To visit Antarctica now is to be a part of that history. So, because you go to Antarctica and it has been untouched, there's no human population. It is kept as it is. So when you go there, you tend to feel that we were again part of that same Gondwana land. We've come back to that past. So again, as if you go to any historical place, yes, even if you are not trying to, you get a sense of that history. You certainly try to imagine what would this place like have been when people were there, when the kings were there. Yes. So Akshi is again getting that sense of history. It's to understand the significance of pre-Cordilleran folds and pre-Cambrian granite shields. So these are some technical terms: pre-Cambrian granite shields and pre-Cordilleran folds. Cordilleran folds are again just mountains because they fold, the tectonic plates folded and created mountains. It's a mountain range in Spain. And pre-Cambrian, it's a time unit. If I say pre-independence, what does that mean?
Before independence.
Before independence. So pre-Cambrian again means the same thing, before the Cambrian era. Okay, before the Cambrian era ended, and when the mammals came on Earth for the first time, when the mammals came, that is when the Cambrian era stopped. Before that, all that there was the Cambrian era. And granite shield, that means there was just land, and all that land was just made of granite shields, and that was the Cambrian era. Pre-Cambrian era, Antarctica is still part of that because there's no human population on that much on Antarctica. So you go back to those times. She saw ozone and carbon, how that is affecting Antarctica, evolution and extinction. So this is an important paragraph here. So what is her experience? To visit Antarctica is to be part of that history, to get a grasp as to where we have come from and where we could possibly be heading. Okay. When you think about all that can happen in a million years, it can get pretty mind-boggling. Imagine India pushing northwards. Again, this is talking about the continental drift that I told you about, jamming against Asia to buckle its crest and form the Himalayas. Let me show it to you. Please pay attention as to where India is. See where India is going to jam against Asia, and it's going to be the India that you live in. It's going and it's going to jam against Asia. And here is where the Himalayas were formed. And this is the modern world that we live in. Again, this is India. This was the Gondwana land. And it's going to jam against Laurasia. This is where, when that collision happened, this is where the Himalayas were formed. Got it, everybody? It's fascinating to see this, isn't it? Imagine such big land masses. They are not, although they might seem less. I mean, imagine how big these land masses are, and they're going and colliding with other land masses. Yes, they're drifting apart. And then Asia to buckle its crest and form the Himalayas, South America drifting off to join North America, opening up the Drake Passage. I'll show you what the Drake Passage is. To create a cold circumpolar current, keeping Antarctica frigid, desolate, and at the bottom of the world. So Antarctica is this area. This is going to the bottom of the world. You see, India is going up, and Antarctica, this area is going to the bottom of the world. And this is where we have the Drake Passage. I'll show you what the Drake Passage is. See, this is South America. This is Antarctica, and this is the Drake Passage. The passage, that means the only place that was left. So the passage is very, very important because it's a very rough patch. If you ever want to go to Antarctica, it's a very rough patch of sea that you have to cross because 3 oceans meet here. Okay. And there is the Southern Sea as well. So when 3 currents meet, and that is what it makes the water go very, very rough. Okay. So this is the Drake Passage. This was opened, and For a sun worshipping South Indian like myself, she is South Indian, 2 weeks in a place where 90% of the Earth's total ice volumes are stored is a chilling prospect. Imagine 90% of the total Earth's ice is in Antarctica because it's just land, and on top of that land is meters and meters of ice. That is what Antarctica is, to be simply, uh, that is just what is Antarctica. 90% of the Earth's total ice volumes are stored in chilling. It's a chilling prospect, not just for circulatory and metabolic functions, but also for the imagination. It's like walking into a giant ping pong ball devoid of any human markers, no trees, no billboards, no buildings. When you go and see such a place, when you actually try to think what human beings are doing and what human beings are capable of, that we get to see how tiny we are in comparison to the things that are happening on Earth. If you go to Antarctica, you will realize, or if you go to any ocean, if you go on a ship voyage, you will see nothing else other than water surrounded. You will be just be surrounded by water. If you go to a mountain, you'll just see how immensely huge those mountains are and how tiny we are in comparison to them. So when she went there, she saw no human markers, no trees, no billboards, no buildings, nothing that we can make sense of our world with. You lose all earthly sense of perspective and time here. You don't get any sense of time and earthly perspective. You don't even know that if you're on Earth. The visual scale ranges from the microscopic to the mighty, midges and mites to blue whales and iceberg. So if you want to see things here, the visual scale of things is it starts from microscopic organisms to the mightiest of icebergs and mountains. Okay, it's not just limited to eye level things that we see normally. No, from microscopic elements to something that as big as icebergs you can find here. As big as countries, icebergs were as big as countries. The largest recorded was the size of Belgium, size of a country. That was the size of an iceberg. Days go on and on in surreal 24-hour austral summer light. So because it's at the South Pole, there's no day and night concept there. There's always light there. And a ubiquitous silence. What is ubiquitous? What is ubiquitous?
Which